Okay, so we are live. I have about 2 minutes, so I'm just going to share this really quickly with the with some of my viewers, and then we'll launch into this awesome, amazing books. Let me hold on a second. The internet is doing its most wonderful things. Okay, I'm about to share this, and then I don't want to switch. I did not ask you to switch. That's okay, y'all. Hold on a second. Let me go back because it thinks I want to switch and I did not. Let me go back home and let me share. Let me see if it'll let me share. No, it won't. Hold on a second, y'all. Then we can get started because I didn't ask it to switch. I don't know why it did that. So I'm like, I didn't ask you to switch. Okay, switched back. Now let me just look this up real quick. There we go. There I am. That looks like me. Wow, wow, wow. Here we go. All right. Okay, perfect. Let me just get rid of that and turn that down and make sure it's all the way down. Okay, let's get my books and my pen. There are a couple of things I think I wanted to talk about. I'll have to jump to my notes. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Let me move that arrow out of my way. Thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to our book club discussion. Today, we are going to be diving into Lone Women by Victor LaValle. We'll explore themes of isolation, survival, and resilience, and discuss the historical context of 20th century America that shapes the story. But before we do that, I do have a few announcements. Hold on a sec. Let me adjust some things. All right, so this is the book that we will be talking about today. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for my own self. There we go. So a couple of announcements, though, before we do jump into our book discussion. We are going to be having a Technology 101 program by Adelaide Connect. It's going to be on February the 24th at 5 p.m. here at Lamb Library. You'll be able to ask questions, get some walkthroughs, and be in a friendly class that will help you learn the things that you need to progress with your technology and all kind of fun things. So please stop by for that if you are available, and definitely tell a friend. Also, next on February the 25th at 5 p.m., we're going to be having our Teen and Tween Hangout, and they're going to be making twist and tell greeting cards. It's kind of like pop-up greeting cards, basically, and that is for teen and tween. So anybody from the ages of, well, I can't remember the ages. It's teen and tween. So in between, I think they said 11 to 18. But to be quite honest, y'all, I cannot remember off the top of my head. So double check those age ranges, and they'll definitely let you know if you can come to that program. It's going to be Tuesday, February 25th at 5 p.m. And they're making twist and tell greeting cards. And basically, that's kind of like a pop-up greeting card. And then on that Wednesday, February the 26th at 6:30 is the adult craft. And they're going to be making watercolor earrings. Now that one is registration required. So please make sure to register. Sometimes they do have standby lists. And so you might find yourself on that, but definitely come and join the, sorry, I have a pop-up here I need to deal with. Come and join the adult crafting for the watercolor earrings. It looks like a lot of fun. Okay, so let's do this. Boop. All right, let's see what's next. I think that's it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Victor LaValle, the author of our book. So Victor LaValle is the author of the short story collection, Slapboxing with Jesus. 5 novels, The Ecstatic, Big Machine, The Devil in Silver, The Changeling, and Lone Women. And 2 novellas, Lucretia and the Croons, and The Ballad of Black Tom. He is also the creator and writer of 2 comic books, Victor LaValle's Destroyer and Eve. He has been the recipient of numerous awards, including the World Fantasy Award, British Fantasy Award, Bram Stoker Award, Whitling Writers Award, a Guggenheim Fellowship, Shirley Jackson Award, American Book Award, and the Key to Southeast Queens. So basically, Victor LaValle is awarded up, basically. And this time I remembered to include the voice narrator of the audiobook because y'all know how much I like to do a tandem read. And so I did do a tandem read. I listened to the audiobook and took notes with the physical book. And the voice narrator or the voice actress for this book is Janice Abbott Pratt. She is phenomenal, y'all. Janice Abbott Pratt is an American actor, an audiobook narrator. Her narrations have won her 14 earphone awards from AudioFile. Along with co-narrators, she also won the 2022 Audio Award for short stories or collections for Blackout. Abbott Pratt has performed in numerous regional theater productions as well as on television shows. She has appeared in several August Wilson plays like Gem of the Ocean and 7 Guitars. You might also recognize her from TV shows like Evil, Luke Cage, and Instinct. All right, so let me bop out of here. Hold on a second, y'all. My screen is doing wonderful things. Okay, so hold on one second. All right, let's get rid of this. Please remember to like the page. It really helps the algorithm. It lets the algorithm know that you like what I'm doing. And if you do like what I'm doing, remember to like the page and please share the live stream. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the awards that Lone Women has received. And then after that, I'm going to read a excerpt from the book. So hold on, let's do this real quick. Okay, so Lone Women has been awarded a Best Book of the Year from the New York Times Book Review, Time, NPR, Chicago Tribune, Los Angeles Times, The Washington Post, Esquire, Vulture, Pace, Tor.com, Book Riot, Polygon, Chicago Public Library, Kirkus Reviews, and the Library Journal. One of Bookpage's 10 Best Books of the Year, that's from 2023, a finalist for the Los Angeles Times Book Prize and Locus Award, and it was longlisted for the Mark Twain American Voice in Literature. Okay, so this book has gotten a lot of accolades and a lot of awards, and I hope that you guys had a chance to read it. And if you did, then you'll understand why. It's a really good book. And if you want more insights to the book and to the discussion questions and to kind of get these things ahead of time, please sign up for the newsletter. Right here is the link copy and paste that, and it'll take you right to where you need to sign up for the newsletter, and you'll get all the books that we are reading for this year. Plus, when I send out the newsletter, I always include a replay in case you missed it. You won't have to go looking for it. It's not hard. It's always on the Facebook page, or it's always on the Lovely from the Library Facebook page, the Lamb Library Facebook page, and the YouTube page. So you've got 3 different places in case you're not fooling around with Facebook for whatever reasons. Then you can go and watch it at YouTube. And if honestly you don't feel like dealing with any of those, sign up for the newsletter. I know that some people are trying to limit their amount of social media, and I'm for that. If you like it, I love it, and I want to help you with your goals. So if that is you, sign up for the newsletter, and you won't even have to get on the internet. I mean, you will to check the newsletter, but you know what I mean. Okay, so let's do this. Next, let's see what we're doing next. Okay, so like we were talking about, hang on, let me jump back here because I got a little bit ahead of myself. Let's just start with I'm going to pop over here since y'all already seen it. I'm going to read an excerpt from the book. This is just chapter 1. It's a short chapter. It's going to set the scene, and then we're going to jump into our story. Hold on. Okay. There are 2 kinds of people in this world: those who live with shame and those who die from it. On Tuesday, Adelaide Henry would have called herself the former, but by Wednesday, she wasn't as sure. If she was trying to live, then why would she be walking through her family's farmhouse carrying an Atlas jar of gasoline, pouring that gasoline on the kitchen floor, the dining room table, dousing the settee in the den? And after she emptied the first Atlas jar, why go back to the kitchen for the other jar, then climb the stairs to the second floor, listening to the splash of gasoline on every step? Was she planning to live or trying to die? There were 27 Black farming families in California's Lucerne Valley in 1915. Adelaide and her parents had been one of them. After today, there would only be 26. Adelaide reached the second floor landing. She hardly smelled the gasoline anymore. Her hands were covered in fresh wounds, but she felt no pain. There were 2 bedrooms on the second floor, her bedroom and her parents'. Adelaide's parents were lured west by the promise of land in this valley. The federal government encouraged Americans to homestead California. The native population had been decimated, cleared off the property. Now it was time to give it all away. The invitation was one of the few that the United States extended to even its Negro citizens. And after 1866, the African Society put out a call to, quote unquote, colonize Southern California. The Henrys were among the hundreds who came. They weren't going to get a fair shot in Arkansas, that was for damn sure. The federal government called this homesteading. Glenville and Eleanor Henry fled to California and grew alfalfa and wild grass, sold it to the cattle owners for feed. Glenville studied the work of Luther Burbank, and in 1908, they began growing the botanist Santa half-full Atlas jar wobbled in her grip. She turned and called over the landing, "Mr. Cole, I will be out in 5 Hey y'all, I'm back. I am sorry that something peemed out, but I'm still here. So I don't know what happened, but let me get my slides back in here real quick. Everything is plugged up. I am plugged up to everything, y'all. So I don't know why that happened. I am in a basement, and so sometimes things get interesting down here. But anywho, let me get back to what I was doing. I was reading. Hold on, let me get back to where I was. Okay, and then we'll just do this. Okay, so where was I? All right. He called to her again from the porch. I tried, he said, but that thing weighs more than my damn horse. What did you pack inside? My whole life, she thought. Everything that still matters. She looked to the door of her parents' bedroom, then called down one more time. 5 minutes, Mr. Cole. We'll get the trunk and the wagon together. Another grumble, but he didn't curse her, and she didn't hear the sound of his wagon wheels riding off. For a man like Mr. Cole, that was as close to an okay as she was going to get. Would she really have set him on fire? She couldn't say. But it's startling what people will do when they're desperate. Adelaide Henry turned the handle to her parents' bedroom and stepped inside and shut the door behind her and stood in the silence and the dark. The heavy curtains were pulled shut. She'd done that at dawn, after she dragged the bodies of Glenville and Eleanor inside and put them to bed. They lay together now, in their marriage bed, the same place where Adelaide had been conceived. They were only shapes because she'd thrown a sheet over their corpses. Their blood had soaked through. The outline of their bodies appeared as red as silhouettes. When she went to her father's side, the fabric had adhered to his skin when the blood dried. She'd pulled the sheet up over his head. Better that way. She didn't want to see what remained of him. She poured gasoline over his corpse, from his forehead to his feet. Now Adelaide moved around to her mother's side. She pulled Eleanor's side of the sheets up only to her chin, hiding the damage done to her throat. She hadn't felt able to pull the shroud over her mother entirely. Strange to get squeamish about that part, considering all the other damage done to Eleanor's body. Adelaide tilted the jar above her mother's head, but found she couldn't pour out the last of the fuel. She held it over Eleanor and stared into her mother's open, empty eyes. She couldn't bring herself to do it. She set the jar down and crouched by the bed. She whispered into Eleanor's dead ear. You kept too many secrets, Adelaide said. Look what it cost you. With that, she rose and reached into her pocket. Hold on a second. There we go. The matchbox bore the symbol of the African Society, a silhouette of a black man driving a plow. She struck a match and watched it burn. She flung it at the bed where it landed on her father. She turned quickly so she wouldn't have to see the bodies catch, but she heard it, as if the whole room took a single deep breath. An instant later, she felt the heat across her scalp and neck, but when she stepped out of the room, the flame still licked at her skin. She realized it hadn't been the fire that burned at her, but the guilt. On the upstairs landing, her right knee buckled and she nearly went down. Kneeling with one hand on the railing, she'd done it. Behind that door, her parents were burning. Maybe she should stay with them. That's what she considered. Enough gasoline had spilled on her hands and dress that it wouldn't take long for her to burn. She stepped back inside the bedroom and kneel at the foot of the bed and be engulfed. Oh, I see. Yep. End of the family line. That's what she deserved. What kind of daughter would do the thing she'd done in the last 24 hours? A foul and terrible daughter. Soon Adelaide rose to her feet, but hardly recognized she'd done it. as if her body wanted her to survive, even if her soul felt differently. She rose and put one foot forward, then the next. She'd be leaving it seemed. Who decided that? She wondered, even as she held the railing and descended the stairs. Well, there you are, Mr. Cole said when she stepped out from the screen door. He looked from her to the house. Did he see smoke yet? Could he hear the upstairs bedroom walls starting to crackle? His buckboard wagon sat by the porch, horse nearly as malnourished as the man. Adelaide stood 6 inches taller than Mr. Cole and outweighed him by 40 pounds. No wonder he couldn't lift the trunk. There were handles on either side of the seaward steamer trunk. Adelaide grabbed one end and Mr. Cole took the other. She bent her legs and lifted. Mr. Cole huffed with the strain. Quick now, he said, though he wasn't doing much work. He still felt happy to give commands. She yanked the truck toward the bed of the wagon, and Mr. Cole was pulled along. They reached the wagon, and with one last effort, they set it down in the bed. The wagon sank inches, and all 4 wooden wheels creaked. Mr. Cole's horse took a step forward as if trying to flee the burden. When they stood straight, both Mr. Cole and Adelaide were breathless. Adelaide climbed into the wagon. The only other item she'd brought besides that trunk was her travel bag. It had been packed already, sitting right at the threshold inside the house. Mr. Cole got in beside her on the spring seat. He looked back at the house. Where's your people? He asked. My parents, she said softly. They don't come out to see you off? She looked at the house as well. The bedrooms lay at the back of the structure. Even if there was smoke, it probably wouldn't be seen from the front of the house for a little while. Maybe she had a bit more time before the fire became obvious. They're resting, she said. Mr. Cole kept any further questions to himself. He held the reins and gave 2 clicks with his tongue, and his poor horse pulled and pulled until finally the wagon moved. Adelaide was leaving California with $154, a large sum of money, and still hardly enough for an entirely new life. But that was all she had, that and her travel bag and her trunk. The farmhouse would burn. Eventually their neighbors, the closest farm lay nearly a mile away, would notice. They would sift through the damage and find only 2 bodies inside. They would ask where Glenville and Eleanor's daughter had gone. On a Tuesday, Adelaide Henry had been a farmer. By Wednesday, she became a fugitive. Woo! Okay. Let me put my head back in the screen. Let's do this. I like this one. Boom. Okay, so that is where we are right now. That is where we start off. Adelaide is basically a fugitive from the law, basically. All right, so let's go and talk about some of the themes and tropes that we will be discussing. Like I said earlier, we're going to be talking about several themes and tropes, but family, sisterhood, survival, legacy, misogyny, colonialism, racism, self-reinvention, and of course, secrets, and lots of them. All right. So let's do this. Boom. And I think the next one is just going to be discussion questions. Yes. Okay. So we're going to jump into the discussion questions. But before I do that, let me just double check here real quick to make sure that I am not missing any questions or comments. I thought I heard a little buzz while I was reading my little excerpt. Let's see what's going on here real quick, y'all. So like I was saying, I hope that y'all had a chance to read the book. I really, really enjoyed this book. I thought it was great. Let me see real quick. Yes. Okay, good. So I really thought this was an exciting book. There's so much going on. Let me just start with one of the discussion questions because I have so many comments about this too. Let me get rid of this. Hold on a second, friends. There. Okay, now it's gone. Okay, so Adelaide has to make this trip all by herself. I am trying not to spoil this because if I tell you what's in the trunk, it's going to ruin the whole book. We do find out what is in the trunk, but she has to make the trip from the Lucerne Valley in California all the way to Montana. Now, this is in 1915, and there is actually historical precedence for there being lone women being homesteaders out in Montana. Matter of fact, I almost forgot to tell y'all, Happy Black History Month. Happy Black History Month. There was a lot of precedence for Black women being homesteaders in Montana. They did have to deal with, of course, colonialism, racism, and whatnot. But out in Montana, on the plains back then, people tended to have a bit more of an open mind. You will see one of the things that is reoccurring in this book over and over again is they talk about Montana almost as if it is a person. It is basically like another character in the book. That and then the motif of the wind. But they're constantly talking about how the land is trying to kill you. And your neighbors might not like you, but they certainly will help you. And part of that is because back during those frontier times, it wasn't like the town that she moved to, which is called Big Sandy. It wasn't like they had fire departments and police officers and libraries and all. This was like the bareback, just beginnings of society. And one of the characters in the book and I'll get to her a little bit later, Bertie Brown, is actually based off an actual Black woman who was a homesteader in Montana. So let me kind of dial it back just a little bit because I'm super excited about this book. The title, Lone Women. It is, there's several lone women in the book. Adelaide gets the idea to go to to go to Montana from these newspaper articles she's reading about a lone woman who's a homesteader out in Montana. When she gets to Montana and buys her claim, and he puts a little pin in it, the guy there, I think that's when she starts to understand and realize that the stories that she was reading were made up. They're a composite. The lady who she has been so inspired by doesn't actually exist. She's like a composite, you know? So that's the first lone woman that we run into. Of course, Adelaide being the main lone woman who the story revolves around her. But there are a lot of lone women in the book. There's Jerry Reed, the woman who Adelaide meets when she gets to Big Sandy before she gets driven out to her claim. There's Mrs. Mudge and her 4 boys. She is a woman all by herself. There is Grace Price, who her and her son Sam are out there by themselves. There's Bertie Brown, and then there is Fiona Wong. Fiona Wong and Bertie Brown work together. And they're also by themselves. Who else? There's anyway, there is a bunch of lone women all by themselves out on the plain. So the title is Lone Women, but they're not as alone as they think. And as the story progresses, we understand why. Let's just jump into one discussion question. Let me also check the comments to make sure if people have any questions. You know what? I do want to say this before I'm going to type it in here real quick too. Okay, so one of the things when I was researching interviews that Victor LaValle had done for this book is he said he came up with the idea for this story when he was invited out to Montana to speak about one of his other books. And he said what he likes to do is when he's going somewhere and he's only going to be there for like a day, he likes to buy a history book about the place that he's going because he said it happened so quickly. It's almost like he wasn't there. And so he bought a history book when he was in Montana to discuss one of his other books. And he started reading about this, and it was the history of women homesteaders in Montana. And then he came across an excerpt about Bertie Brown, and he started wondering, I wonder what it would have been like for Black women to go out there and be homesteaders all on their own. And so he started doing more research, and that's when he realized, oh, I'm researching for a book. So this book literally came about because of his curiosity. And like we were talking about before, identity is a large part of this book. And let me see, because I have some notes here. Sorry if I disappear for a second. That is not the notes I want to bring up. That's not it either. Hold on a second, friends. Let me pop in here real quick. One thing that I did want to discuss, I think that it is pertinent, and I'm just kind of curious about this, is Victor LaValle's identity himself. Let me pull this out here. Here he is. I'm going to read this real quick. Let me pop back over here real quick so y'all can see. I can see y'all. Okay, so Victor LaValle is not actually African American. He is Black, but he is not African American. I'm going to take the time to discuss this just briefly because it is Black History Month, and this is part of the reason why I picked the book. I didn't know that he was an African American. He's on all the lists too. But if you dig around a little bit, people will tell you that he is Hispanic as well. He's not Hispanic. He has a white German father, and his mother is from Uganda. So he is biracial, and you can be biracial and Black, but he is not African American, which is my ethnic group. And I'm not questioning Victor LaValle's Blackness. I don't have time to do that to people. I never would, because he is still Black. He's just not part of my ethnic group. So I find it fascinating that a lot of his books are written about African American, a group that he is not a part of. And I think, and this is just me, Victor LaValle, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not trying to be all up in your business, but I wonder if part of the reason why he does that, because he was born in New York, and that's where he was raised. So he does have a Black New York experience, just not a Black American New York experience. And I wonder if part of the reason why he does that is because he is exploring his own identity as an outsider to African American community, or identity. Let me just read this excerpt real quick from one of the interviews that I was talking about. So this is from a Pen 10 interview. And the question was, how does your identity shape your writing? Is there such a thing as the writer's identity? And he says, my identity or identities is the filter through which I perceive reality. They're like one lens on a camera. They help me determine the kind of picture you take. For this book, I had a chance to interrogate one of my primary filters, that of a heterosexual man. In my early drafts of my story, I had the wrong filter on. When writing Adelaide and the other women, there were so many assumptions I made, so many blind spots that only became clear as I shared my work, my plans with my wife and my agents, all of whom are women. I didn't change my identity in order to write the book, of course, but I had to be aware of my identity, my lens, and learn new ways of perceiving, of seeing, if I was going to do right by the women in the book. Okay, so that's why I bring that up, because I'm always curious about this. I'm curious about Black biracial men, or just men in general who write about women. But specifically in this case, I'm thinking of several other authors who are Black men or biracial Black men, and they're writing about Black women, and in some cases, Black little girls. The books I'm thinking of are Amari and the Night Brothers, which I really love. We read that book here. And then there is a British author writing about a little Black girl who has magical abilities, and she's communicating with rivers, spirits, and whatnot. Anyway, I'm just curious about that, because I'm like, all these different dangerous positions or situations that you're putting these women in, are you taking their identity as women in your forefront of your mind and as Black Americans? I'm super, super curious about that. And I'm glad that he is at least thinking about being aware of his identity so that it doesn't take up too much space in the character's identity in the story of the book. I think that's super, super important, and I'm glad that he mentioned that. So, anywho, so Adelaide she has to travel by boat to get to Montana, and then when she gets to Montana, she buys her land plot. She gets to this city. It's called Big Sandy. When she gets off the train, she is greeted by Jerry Reed, who is like a town founding mother of the town. And Miss Reed tells her, you can hire a wagon and a horse to take you out to your claim. And she tells her which men not to deal with because they're not honest. And she gives her one man's name, Mr. Coulter. So she gets Mr. Coulter and to take her out there. And she is in the wagon with Miss Mudge and Mrs. Mudge's 4 boys who are all blind. So anywho, they end up getting out to her claim. They spend the night in an abandoned town, like an abandoned hotel. The town didn't survive. When she wakes up in the morning, the Mudges are gone. It's just her and Mr. Coulter's, Mr. Coulter's. And she gets out there to her claim. She gets out to her claim. She is realizing that she's mistaken a lot of things. Since the Mudges are gone, she gets to take their bed, their stove, and their rocking chair because she didn't bring any of that with her. She basically didn't have a lot of stuff. So, anywho, she gets there, she sets up. Her neighbors come by. That's when she meets Grace and Sam Price. Okay, so now let's jump into the questions. I'm just kind of setting the stage a little bit. Okay, so, and if you happen to have the book, the print copy, there are questions in the back, and those are the discussion questions that we are going to be reading from. Okay. Let's go to question. I think I might have already answered question 1. Lone Women features fantastical, mystical elements that are counterbalanced by the utmost ordinary aspects of real daily life. Discuss where the author finds the appropriate balance between fantasy and reality in this book to make it both accessible and believable. So again, I did already answer the question. He has based some of the characters off of real life people who he only found little excerpts of in the history books. To further add on to that, he was talking about how the people who had invited him out to this university in Montana were people who had either moved there as transplants for a job or they had been born in Montana and lived there their whole lives. And a lot of them did not know about these Black homesteaders from the 1900s. And so he wanted to write their story. In one interview, he was talking about how you have to kind of read between the lines because these people are writing in their diaries, the homesteaders, and they're not always telling you everything day by day. Like, for instance, he was talking about how, excuse me, how Bertie and Fiona Wong were actually partners. They were lovers. But he said, like, when he was doing research, he would say, let's say there was 2 women, Daisy and Hannah. Daisy bought plot 13, Hannah bought plot 12, and they were side by side, and they built a big house that they both could live in. Now, what he's saying is, like, they didn't say they were partners, but they were partners, and we get it. He said they would never write that down because something like that would not be accepted and they would be persecuted. And as we go on to realize, Adelaide is not the only one with a secret. Adelaide has secrets. Miss Reed has secrets. Fiona and Bertie have secrets. Grace has a secret. Sam has a secret. A lot of these ladies have secrets. And that is the burden of this book. That is the monster of the book, is all these secrets and how they impact you and what you do with it, and how telling those secrets to people that you trust can help you to relieve your burden and to form community. So anywho, where'd my discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, where'd my stuff go? Okay, so let me pop back over here so we can, because I've been talking a lot, because I really like this book. Let's talk about some more things in this book. So family. Okay, so we start talking about family, survival, legacy, misogyny. One thing that I really liked in this book, where he was talking about community, is when Grace and Sam and Adelaide and Frank and his uncle all go to like this barn party not too far from them, a few miles up the road. I say a few miles up the road, but boy, it's probably like 20 miles up the road. And Adelaide starts realizing, I'm the only Black person in this room with these white people. And she said they were all nice to her and kind, but it was like speaking a language that she only understood, and that everybody else didn't. That scene where he describes it is very much like being a Black person, or the only Black person in the room. I thought he did a really good job with that scene and describing her awareness of who she is and where she was and who she was without. She did meet Birdie briefly then. Birdie made hooch, or moonshine, I should say. She met her briefly, but didn't really get to talk to her too much. That's when she ran into Mrs. Mudge, who was going by Mrs. Morris. When she wakes up from that scene, the Mudge boys have stolen horses. And horse thieves back then, even today, back then they got shot. If you steal somebody's horse in Texas today, you'll get 30 years. 30 years for stealing somebody's horse. That's more than a car, because people don't play about their horses. Anyway, I digress. So that is like being without her community. She had to leave because something bad happened, and she had to leave the safety of her community. Now, later on in the book, as she's starting to make new friends with Grace and them and Birdie and everybody, she starts to reinvent herself. That's another one of the themes, is reinvention of oneself. And so Adelaide is not the nicest to Miss Mudge because she knows this lady is lying to her, but Grace doesn't. So they go back home. It takes a long, long time for them because, remember, they're on horsebacks. They're in Montana. I wish I had a good picture of Montana to show y'all. It is wide and vast, and people on these homesteads, they had about 5 years to prove up, which means they had to stay on the land and grow things and survive for 5 years before their claim was done. And the reason why they did that is because the land was harsh and there were so many people that were dying. Like, she had a well on her property, but it was dirty. It wasn't good drinking water, so she had to collect snow and go to the creeks. Also, she didn't have wood, so she had to burn something that was akin to peat moss, which caused her home to get all smoky and whatnot. Anyway, I digress. Let's go into another question. Oh, but this is where I was talking about community. In one scene, after she does meet Birdie, Miss Mudge, or not Miss Mudge, when Miss Price came to visit her with Sam, she brought her beets and food and stuff and gave her some insight on different things to grow. And so after they all get back from the barn thing, she goes to Mrs. Price's house because she needs some wood. She can't live. She's running out of wood, but she has to walk because she doesn't have a horse. She gets there and she finds that Miss Price has been shot in the hand. We don't know where Sam is. And Miss Price realizes, she apologizes to Adelaide and says it was Miss Mudge. And so Adelaide rescues Sam. He's in the cellar, hanging by his little wrists, and she gets him in the house. Birdie was coming by because she knows Miss Price, and she was coming by to drop something off. And that's when Birdie and Adelaide meet. And Adelaide almost runs to give Birdie a hug because this is the first Black person she's seen in months since she left her parents. And I want to explore this a little bit more too, because of Birdie, after they get Miss Henry to the not Adelaide, but Miss Price, after they get her to the doctors and whatnot, Adelaide stays there with Sam and watches him. And so they start bonding and get really, really close. Bertie comes back and she says, hey, I put a loan out for you. I got you this horse because you're going to need it. And she says, later on, we'll come and we'll do something about that hair. Now, Adelaide has not been taking care of her hair for whatever reason. And for Black women, our hair is a huge deal. And can you imagine being out on the plains? You don't have all your accoutrements to do your hair the way that you do. And then here comes this Black woman who everybody knows because Bertie got the best moonshine around. People from Canada was coming to get this lady's moonshine. She also was washing clothes and doing linen work for the opera house and the hotels and people in town. Anyway, Bertie's like, I'll do your hair too. So Adelaide, Bertie is older than Adelaide, and Bertie reminds Adelaide of her mom. Anywho, I digress because there's so much and I don't want to give it away. Let's talk about Fiona Wong and inventing yourself. So Fiona Wong is a Chinese woman. She was born in Butte, Montana. And she is out here in Big Sandy and the surrounding towns because she's looking for her father's grave. Now, this is a man she has never met, but she's looking for his grave because she wants to how do you say dig him up without saying dig him up? That sounds horrible, but she wants to dig him up and send his bones back to China. And she's having a hard time finding him. And she says this because a lot of Chinese men, their names were not marked on their grave. It was just like Chinaman. That's what they called them. So she's talking about this with Adelaide as they're going out to different towns looking to see if anybody knows of her father and where they might be buried. At one point, they go to this town. It is an abandoned town, and they go into the saloon, and there's 5 men. And so they start talking. Adelaide is with her, and the men kind of, they seem a little rough around the edges, so Adelaide pulls a pistol out on them. And they go and they escape from those men, or they leave that place. And the man's like, hey, I was just going to point the way to where the graveyard is. And Adelaide's like, you can point from where you are. You don't need to run all up on us. So they go to the graveyard. They look for Fiona's father. They do not find him. And that's where she tells Adelaide, it's kind of going to be hard, but I'll know it. I'll know him when I see him because she's got a picture. Because, she said they just put Chinaman on here. So I don't know if that's my father or not. They're trying to leave, right? And that's when the men appear at the grave. And they get on their horses, they ride away. And as they're riding away, these men are on foot, and they're riding through this abandoned town. And there are these old kilns there, and they can hear the men keep saying, it's getting cold in here, we should do blah, blah, blah. Come to find out, in the part that I can't tell you because I'm trying not to spoil it, they were ghosts. They were ghosts. They were an abandoned ghost town, and they had froze to death as the rest of the town had left because it was too cold and they couldn't grow food and yada, yada, yada. So there's a constant element of eeriness in this book with the weird ghosts, with the wind, with the land trying to kill you. Anyway, let's see. I got about 15 minutes, and I've only answered one or asked one question. Let's ask another question. Let's see. How are the themes of lone women relevant to modern discussions of race, privilege, and power? So let's discuss that a little bit. So Miss Jerry Reed is like a founding mother of the town. And she is keeping secrets too. She is keeping a secret that her husband, Mr. Reed, is part of a vigilante group that just go around stringing people up and murdering people and strangling people because they don't have cops. They don't have any kind of law enforcement. It's just him and a few other men. He is a rich founding father. He is rich enough to have a car and a driver who turns out to be one of the Mudge's boys. Again, I'm leaving out a lot of details because I want y'all to read the book. And if I tell you all the stuff, it's going to spoil it for you. So anywho, Miss Reed is lying about that. Also, there's, to answer that question, we're talking about, let me go back to reread it real quick. Yes. How are the themes of lone women relevant to modern discussion of race, privilege, and power? So in one scene in the book, Miss Reed, who is constantly trying to develop the town. She's got an opera piano. There's a theater built there. They keep the light of the theater on at night because it's really flat in Montana outside of the mountains. So you can, if it's a straight line, if somebody lights a candle, again, remember, there's no electricity. So they don't have light pollution. One candle can be seen from miles and miles away, or a light can be seen from miles and miles away. So one of the themes of the town is we'll keep the light of the opera house on so it can light your way back to us. Anywho, Adelaide goes into town with Fiona and Bertie after Bertie does Adelaide's hair. And Adelaide forgets that Bertie is not her mother. And she's sitting between Bertie's legs to get her hair done. So let me just tell y'all a little briefly. As a Black woman who does her own hair but had her hair done by her mom, that's where you sit. You sit on the ground between whoever's legs that you are getting your hair done. It's either in a chair or on the ground. If you're a little kid, it's on the ground. And so as Bertie is doing Adelaide's hair, she is sitting between Adelaide's or Bertie's legs, and Bertie's on her bed. She forgets and she caresses her leg. Bertie cannot feel it because Bertie's got these big boots on. But Fiona sees it, and Fiona don't like Adelaide touching all on her wife like that. But it was such a good scene because when I was a little girl, my mom would get mad at me because she had this one vein on her foot that kind of poked up, and I would push it and push it. It looked like macaroni, like a little round macaroni. I push it and play with it. And so that is a very comforting place to be while somebody's braiding your hair and getting it together. You can't help it. I noticed my mom had little freckles all on her legs and whatnot. So I really thought that was a really, really okay. I'm back. I hope. Okay, I'm back. I hope that I stay here for a little bit. Let me just see what Facebook is doing on my phone here. Okay, it says I'm back there too. So, hey, I'm back. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me. I'm not sure what is going on, but everything is plugged in on my end. I'm not sure if it's because of the snow, which was very light. It could be wind. It could be our server. I don't know. Okay, but I'm here. And thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I have seen a few of the likes that I have. I appreciate y'all. Meanwhile, let me just go on. And I saw all those shares. 6 of y'all shared this. Thank you so much. You're the best. I really appreciate y'all. Let me go on and put this right here and tell y'all to like the page. If you haven't done so already, please like the page. That also lets the algorithm know you dig what I'm putting down and you picking up what I'm putting down. So I appreciate you. Okay. And then we're going to get rid of this. Get rid of that. And you to sign up for the newsletter. Okay, great. So we're almost done. I'm going to give myself at least 5 or 10 more minutes because it's not my fault that it keeps booping out. I think I must be just so magnificent in what I'm doing. It keeps booping out. I don't know why. Okay. Anywho. So we were talking about, race, privilege, and power. So anywho, so Fiona, so we talked about how Birdie makes the moonshine, and she has a little bar, the Blind Pig, and people from Canada, because Montana is super, super close to Canada. I have had the privilege of going to Montana before, and depending on where you are, like I think I was only 2 miles away from Canada, and we did go to Canada. It was beautiful. And so Big Sandy is also not that far from Canada. So she was talking about how Birdie gets some of her rye and different ingredients from her hooch from a Métis man. I think he's Cree. I am so sorry. I can't remember that man's tribe, but pretty sure he was Cree. Anywho, Fiona does the laundry. Again, back in the West, it was very, very common for Chinese people to do laundry, to clean people's clothes. The other occupation that they could do was to be a cook. A lot of the trail cooks were Chinese when people were driving cattle across the West. And they weren't homesteaders usually because it was illegal for them to be homesteaders because of the Chinese Exclusion Act. And you can look that up because that's just part of history and they were not allowed. So that is really a lot of the discussions that were going on as far as race and power. Oh, power. So because Jerry Reed was a founding mother of the town, she was able to direct her Busy Bee Society of Ladies group to support certain businesses. And so there was this one lady who's a lone mother who I had notes. Let me see where I put them. She was a new laundress in town. And this woman, her husband had just died. And so she was a widow and she had children to support. And she opened up a high-powered laundromat. And so she started telling people, take your clothes here. Before then, they were taking them to Birdie and Fiona's. And Miss Reed was like, we want to support our kind, meaning not Fiona, because Fiona wasn't even a homesteader. And so that's why they were taking business away. So again, he's using the story to talk about all these different levels of power, privilege, race, class, all kind of things. Now let's ask, I think we got time for like one more question. I'm afraid that this the video might peter out or the internet might peter out again, and I don't know why it's doing it, but let's see. Let me find a good question. Let's not talk about writing styles. Explore the motif of ghosts in the novel, paying close attention to what it means to be haunted. Who appears as a ghost in the story and to whom? What do these ghosts represent to the people who see them? Are the ghosts a welcome presence? Are they a source of terror? We already kind of talked about those ghosts in that abandoned town when Adelaide and Fiona were out looking for Fiona's father's grave. But let's talk about how when Adelaide does get a rickety-raggedy mare, and she's riding back from the Price's homestead to hers, and her mother pops up. And she only ever sees her mother. She never sees her father as a ghost. And again, I think it's a lone woman. Without giving too much away, what's her name? Eleanor Henry and Jerry Reed have something in common in their children. Let's just say that. In the type of children that they have something in common. And so I think that it represents Is there is a phrase that um, Adelaide's mom used to say. She would say, the woman is the mule," and that's kind of like, and I'm pretty sure this is where Victor. Okay, I am back. I'm so sorry, y'all. I don't know what's going on with the internet. I think we're probably going to end it here. Um, Let me see. I'm just writing in here about the internet connection. Because I can assure you everything is plugged up over on my end. I don't know what is happening. It could be a server issue, but I'm not 100% sure what is going on. This, y'all. Let me just add my slides back here and we Okay, real quick before it kicks me off again, I'm just going to talk briefly about the read-alikes for this book, and then we're going to go from there. Let me get rid of this banner. Let me add my slide back because I can't remember all of the books that are read-alikes. Let me get rid of my head, because I don't know if that's what's causing the problem. I have no idea, friends. But I'd still hope that you get a chance to read this book. It was fascinating. I like the ideas of identity, family, and sisterhood, especially the way that it ended. Again, without me giving away, I cannot talk to you about the ending because that's going to give away the secret. But there's lots of secrets in this book. If you enjoyed this kind of Western magical surrealism, here are 4 other books I think that you might enjoy that you can get with your library card that we have here. We have The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. We have that in print, audio, e-audio book and ebook. We have The Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. Also print, audio, ebook, and ebook. We have The Hunger by Alma Katsu, which is a retelling of the Donner Party. Your girl is obsessed with the Donner Party. That's also available in e-audio, audio, and print. And then we have Red Rabbit by Alec Grekian. Print, e-audio, and audio book alike. All of these you can get at PCCLD. And if you can't come in for whatever reason, then come on and get it from our e-library. Again, I apologize for the internet connections. I have no idea what's going on, but don't let that stop you from reading this book. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. I enjoyed it. If you can, check out Frontier House. It is available on, I think it's on YouTube now. This is it came out in 2002, so this is a 20-year-old series, but they talk about a lot of historical accurate information, including that Black people were out there homesteading. One of the couples is interracial, and that was okay then too. So they were really progressive out there in the West. It's part of the reason why we have common law marriage in Colorado, because it being the West, and you aren't always going to have a preacher or somebody who was a judicial official to marry you. So they had common law marriage until people could come around. They did it in Texas too, but currently common law is no longer looked at as legal. At least I don't think it is in Texas. I know it is here, but I don't think it is in Texas anymore. And who cares about Texas? I don't live there no more. I'm just playing Texas. Don't come at me. I'm just playing. Anywho, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me and listening to the book discussion despite all the technical difficulties. Next month's book is, hold on. Next month's book is Young and Restless: The Girls Who Sparked America's Revolution by Maddie Kahn. We'll be meeting here on March the 20th at 4 p.m. Hopefully we will have better technical prowess than we do right now. I hope you enjoyed Lone Women by Victor LaValle. I think that's it. Again, have a really good day. I did. I love this book. I thought it was really interesting. I think the horror and the monsters were not who you really think the horror and the monsters were. I was hoping to get to that part, but my time is up. But I will see you back here next month, March 20th, 4 p.m. for The Young and the Restless. All right. Wait, Young and Restless, not The Young and the Restless. That's a show. That's a TV show that I ain't dealing with. Okay. See you guys later. Bye.